What's that? Okay, so we're ready to do the part 2 of the first death encounter. Okay. For those of you who don't realize it, my friend behind the camera, it's Brian Hart. He's my alter ego and helper. He's very camera shy, so he's using sign language and semaphore, and he's talking like this. I'm trying to read his lips. He doesn't want to be picked up on the microphone. So, yeah. So anyway, you probably see him at times answering stuff on the YouTube channel when I can't do it. But he says we're ready to go. So this is going to be part 2 of my first death encounter. I see the one I had in the hospital when that happened as half of the whole experience. And this next part that I'm about to share with you happened on September 18th, about 4 weeks later after the full death encounter at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, when I had the pilogram study. But before I go into that, I just want to mention a few things I didn't mention in the first part of the testimony. And number one, the music that you're listening to when each of these sections opens up, did you know we can't put any more than a 10-minute upload per video onto YouTube? But the music, beautiful music that you're hearing, the classical guitar work, was done by a friend of mine who I happened to know in college but had a falling away from a long time ago. He's now a diocesan priest in Colorado, taking care of 4 parishes, I understand. His name is Donald P. Malin. But it's now these days Father Donald Malin, or Don Malin, whatever his congregation loves to call him. And heck of a lovely guy to meet. Very dedicated priest. He became a priest late in life. He wanted to do it early on when he was in college, when we were at Loyola University getting our degrees in Westchester, California. Is the one I'm talking about. And but he got married, did that for a while, for about 14 years. It didn't work out. He got divorced. He was out in the world for a while, and finally he decided to pursue what he originally loved and wanted to do, and that was to be a Catholic priest. So, but he's a fantastic musician, and I love his work. I used to listen to him play the guitar when we were in college. And I'm a piano man myself. I have almost a comparable second degree in music, along with my technical communication arts degree in the technical communication arts and sciences. And the piece that I picked is the old Shenandoah song. That's in public domain. Anyone can have that. But he did such a beautiful job with the guitar, I just had to use it, pieces of it, for my opening and closing with each section. I hope you like it. It's very peaceful, very pleasant sounding when you listen to it. So anyway, I just want to give him a little credit there. That's him you're hearing on the guitar. And I just want to look at my notes here. I want you to know that I'm not taking the time to tell you what all of these experiences mean as far as the death encounters are concerned. I just want to tell you what happened. If I ever decide to tell why it all happened, I'd have to write a book to do that. But I'm doing this just to let you know, for those of you who need to hear it, there is death, there is life beyond death. We are all spiritual beings that took on bodies, not the other way around. The world has it all backwards because everyone thinks that their flesh is the be-all and end-all of existence, and it's the spirit that's the be-all and end-all of existence. This is just temporary. These bodies that we partake of on this planet or any other planet, and the universe is full of life, you'll discover in death, just teeming with life. The Lord is the Lord of life. And he didn't just stop at one planet. He had a lot of ideas he wanted to do, and it's out there. We're not mature enough yet to receive it. But maybe one day this planet will grow up and it'll be ready to have what scientists call first contact, and it'll be a pleasant experience for the planet. Not all these horror films that you watch where the planet's being destroyed or raided. No, it's the God. God is a very civilized God, and the planets that are they're far more advanced than us are very peaceful, very law-abiding to the laws and respects of the laws of God's universe, very intelligent, and love is dominant on these greater worlds more than they are here. We're still, seems like we're going through our adolescence fighting over everything all the time when we shouldn't be. So anyway, I just want you to know I'm sharing the experiences for the ones of you who love to hear these near-death experiences, want to hear another testimony, and for those of you who are atheists or don't believe it, or you want the proof. You know, for those of you who want the proof, I would say look up into the night sky, because you're looking at the proof. God is not a person who's going to walk up to you and shake your hand. He's a formless, pure white light being from which the whole creation is suspended inside of, and it's all made out of his conscious living stuff, is the best way to explain what I was shown in death. So, but that's, if you want proof where you can shake his hand and put him under a microscope and all that, it doesn't exist. You're never going to have it. You're wasting your time looking at it that way. Your approach is completely wrong. But I would do what the Bible says. The Bible says, you know, you look up in the night sky and then you can't see the God exists. You're a fool, is basically what it says. And the word fool means you're silly. If you look it up in the dictionary, it means you're being silly, because it's staring you right in the face. So I'm not going to try to convince those people that don't believe. You've got a very hard course ahead of you, and a very painful one as you try to find your way through. And I feel sorry for you. I pray for you that you find your way eventually. But for those of you who need to hear this, it's available, and I'd like you to hear it, because I think it'll help boost the faith of those who need it, and open your eyes to a lot bigger things that are beyond this existence than maybe you've read in conventional religion. I've always said that you know, people that I've talked to talk about religion, and I say, what does God have to do with religion? God has nothing to do with religion. That's man's business. God is the creation. He's the creator, the ruler over it. When you see the throne of our Father, you'll find out that the only thing that matters to him is the pure white light substance of his being. That's all that's real to him, and his word. Anything else we say or do, he sees as silly. Absolutely ridiculous, because our word holds no validity in his creation. All the laws we come up with on this planet, all the things we create, they mean nothing to him. Real to him and his word. Anything else we say or do, he sees as silly. Absolutely ridiculous, because our word holds no validity in his creation. All the laws we come up with on this planet, all the things we create, they mean nothing to him. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that's real to him is his being, which he made the creation out of, and his word. That's all that's permanent and real to him. So with that said, the next thing I want to comment on is when I had the first death encounter and I was in our Lord's presence, when the light rays were coming off of his face, and it's like looking into the sun without going blind when you look at all the light rays coming off of his face, those light rays passed through me, and where there was pain in the center of my chest, and by the way, in your body, that's the seat of your soul. Edgar Cayce had that right. That's where your soul resides. So it's not heartache that you feel, it's soul ache is when you feel pain in your chest. Unless it's a heart attack, you know, that you're having. But if it's not a heart attack, it's just heartache, what you call heartache. It's really a soul ache. And when those light rays came off of his face, they grabbed onto the pain in the center of my spiritual body and kept right on going. The pain was taken away that fast. And so was the mental anguish and the emotional anguish. And the physical was without saying, because I was out of my body, so I wasn't feeling anymore what my body was feeling. And the other thing that I failed to mention was, when you're out of your body and in the spiritual realm, you'll feel this intense euphoria. It's a peace that is beyond any kind of description I could even equate it to. It's like taking the greatest drug in the world without being dopey, but having full clarity, if not even greater clarity, in terms of your ability to comprehend everything. It's like having the greatest marijuana trip I suppose you could have, and you know how everything tastes really good after I used to do that in my college years, you know, but I got away from it. Then everything tastes really good that you eat afterwards, then you go to sleep because you can't stay awake anymore. But it's beyond all of that. I have a lot of compassion now for people who are alcoholics or drug addicts, because I realize what they're looking for is what they knew before they were born, and that was that peace and euphoria that you experience when you're in the spiritual realm. So, and the love is intense. God is still excited about man. He never changed the degree of his excitement from the day he created mankind. When you die, you find out he's not an ogre, vengeful God. He is so excited about us and what we're doing and what he's doing with us. He can hardly wait to really get started with us, because right now, the last 6,000 years since he started the whole thing in the Garden of Eden, and I know some of you don't believe that, but he did, with Adam and Eve, he's just getting everything warmed up for what he wants this creation fully to be in the end, and he's not there yet. We're preparing ourselves, we're getting ourselves ready for the participation in that part of his plan as the souls who wanted to participate in this story that he's playing out. So I'll leave it said at that. The last thing I want to say is Opal Star Industries was created as a result of the first death encounter. I eventually got into doing publication work for engineers and scientists, doing technical writing and illustration work. I'm a scientist myself with all that I've learned and studied through the years. I've studied all the sciences. I'm still growing, still learning. There's a lot to know in God's creation. But I'm also uncovering stuff that is part of my destiny, the part that I'm to contribute to the world before I die, to help it along and bring it further and further into the light. And my focus is on the chronic disease process. A lot of doctors think it doesn't exist. I can tell you it exists. And I demonstrate the science in the new manuscript that I'm working on. In fact, I'm working on two manuscripts. One is entitled When My Doctor Told Me, which tells the last 17 years of the horrifying story I went through with the world medical system, fighting to get well, and how badly I was treated. You don't want to read this unless you got a whole box of tissues next to you, because you're going to be crying a lot as you listen to what I went through as one human being to master it all. And the other book is entitled Connecting the Dots. It's probably going to be like 500 pages, reference book, but beautifully put together, where I bring all the science together to teach people who are lost, even those who have cancer, how it really works and how to use all the alternatives, whether it's Western allopathic medicine and some of the stuff they have to offer, alternative medicine and approaches, herbalism, nutrition, whatever it is. I show you how they all work and what the main goal is that defines real health in the body at the atomic and subatomic level. When you can finally see this picture that I paint in my words and through demonstrate through the document case studies and photographs and illustration work, you finally have a full foundation of absolute truth, the way God did it, the way he brought it together, what it is that you did to mess your body up, and what you can do to use your power to get it all back. And that's my purpose for being here. But it's not my divine destiny. The books are a byproduct of my journey. They are not the reason why I'm here. And the reason why I'm here is nothing related to the books. That's all I'm going to say. And when I complete what I'm here to do, then God will take my life and get me out of this life's journey and move me on to something better He has waiting for me. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now and share with you part 2, as I call it, of my first death encounter. And this has to do with a heavenly visit, is the best way to try to explain it. I know that sounds terribly religious or ethereal or whatever, but wait till you hear what I experienced. This all happened on the morning of September the 18th in 1981, about 4 weeks just after the first death encounter had happened on August 19th. Now, if you notice those numbers, they happen to be the numbers 9, 1, and 8 in combinations. I have been being haunted with those numbers ever since I had the first death encounter. 1, 9, and 8, 9, 8, and 1, 8, 9, and 1, you name it. You name it, I've been getting it. And they have significance, they have meaning, but it's too involved to go into. Also along the way, I keep getting numbers like 333, 444, 111. They come all in different types of forms. I'm now getting mirrored numbers like 242, 343, and I'm getting anagrams all the time, all around me. Like 21, it would be 2112, that's an anagram. Or 4224, that's an anagram. And these happen to be the numbers that angels use. In the last couple of years, I came across Doreen Virtue's work. I know a lot of people don't like her, but I think her angel number book is fabulous. And her crystal children thing is right, dead mark, accurate to what's coming from the spiritual realm into the physical realm. But I love her angel number book because... thing is right, dead mark, accurate to what's coming from the spiritual realm into the physical realm. But I love her angel number book because once I started to read what the numbers meant, then the numbers started to increase in even greater quantity because I realized that the angels knew that I knew they were trying to communicate to me. And you're surrounded by angels. You may not believe it, but you've got angels all around you all the time. And you should learn to call upon them. They're God's messengers and servants. They're there to help you when you need help. All of you that pray to God, you don't realize the first thing He does is turn to an angel on the throne and say, go down to the earth and help Jane or help Mary or help Pete. And He dictates the order. He answers you the second you've made the prayer. But He may not answer you the way you want because He alone knows the ripple effect of anything that you ask for. So He's going to give it to you in the way that He knows is going to cause a cause and effect reaction to take place that's going to be beneficial for everyone around you. So when you pray, you can't pray selfishly. You have to think of everyone around you when you make the pray. And if you'll do that, you'll get your prayers answered more readily than if you just thought about yourself. So you got angels all around you. I've got them. I'm surrounded by them. And they're communicating to you all the time. And if you learn to listen to them, they can guide you. They can help you. That's what they're there for. They're God's servants too. And they'll help you to choose the right things when you don't know what to do. So now, let's go on to part 2. It was, like I said, it was the morning of September 18th. I guess about 5:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep that night. I had been up most of the night going through a lot of stuff in my mind and in my heart. Had been for 4 weeks. I was staying at my mother's house. She wanted to watch over me after I came out of the hospital, which was fine. And it was good for us. It was good therapy for me and her because finally we got to talk about stuff. And I got to talk to her about the hurts she had done to me growing up. And it was kind of like a little group therapy thing. It started anyway. And I got to hear more of her side of what she was going through. And that didn't go on anywhere near as long as I wanted it to. But so anyway, we had been talking through the night. I couldn't sleep. I got up that morning, put my coat on, got in my car and drove down to this beautiful place I always went to that was my little spot to get away from everything. And I think we all have a place like that. This is a place that's only known to ourselves, that no one knows where we are, but it's where we can clear our minds and think things through. And this was a place I went to where I would just talk to God. And I could talk out loud because there was nobody ever around. And only He could hear me. And the angels of God could hear me. But there's a little place called Dockweiler Beach that's just south of Venice Beach, California, on the shoreline where I live. And hardly anyone hangs around there. It's a pretty little place, and it's nice to just sit there at times with my seagulls. The seagulls there are so funny. They're not scared of you. Well, these weren't scared of me. I used to just sit there, and they'd be right next to me, you know, with the wind blowing, and they'd look at me going, "Oh, it's you," you know. And they'd, "Yeah, well, fine, have a seat," you know. They would just sit there and just let the wind blow, thinking their own thoughts through. They wouldn't fly away. And we could both watch the sunrise or the sunset together, and I would just talk to our Father in heaven, and they would listen, I guess, or they'd try to go to sleep, I don't know. But it was a beautiful place, my little spot away from the world where I could pray and just get away from everything. So I went down there. I got in the car, I drove down there, parked in the usual place, walked down this long pathway off the hillside there down to the sand, walked towards the shoreline that morning, which was covered in like a low-ground fog. It was beautiful, though. And I could feel the ocean breeze blowing on me and smell the ocean air. And as I got close to the water, I said a prayer to our Father. And I said, "Father," I said, "I know you can hear me. And I know you have faith in me, and you know that I have faith in you. But I've been alone for so long in my life, I just don't fit in here in this world. I was bright and brilliant as a boy, and I'm still even more that way now, and after the death encounter, I don't know what to make of this. I need to know," I said, "there's someone here, is flesh and blood, who has faith in me. You know, I need a little cheering section, you know, because this has been brutal. I need, you know, go get him, Kevin, you know, type of thing going on." And so I made the prayer, didn't think any further about after I made it. And I walked down to where the sand is now, where the breakwater is happening. But it's gone out because it's the morning tide, but it still has all this cleared area that's easy to walk on. And I start heading northbound towards Venice Beach, California. And over to my right are all the houses on the hills. And over to my left is this low fog with the water appearing and disappearing into the fog. And just as I start to hit the shoreline and start walking north, the fog starts to move rapidly. And it starts to go over me and cover me, blocking my right side so that I cannot see the houses over to my right. And then while it's doing that, it's spinning before me and after me, turning into this tunnel. And it was like, I'm like in the center, and with a radius going around me of about 15 to 25 feet all around. And I'm just walking, watching all of this happen, not understanding what's happening, just amazed that it's happening. And it turns into this tunnel, and I'm looking northbound, and suddenly I hear our Lord's voice, not audibly this time, but speaking to my heart, my soul. And He says, "Look down at your feet. There's a message for you written in the sand." Exactly those words. And I stopped, and this cold chill goes down the back of my neck, down my spine, and I'm staring straight ahead going, "No, can't be." And I start to lower my eyes very slowly, and there I start to see letter after letter after letter, and I didn't even see that walking onto the shore, so I don't know where it came from. And I can't read it because I'm in the middle of it. I'm dead in the center of it. It's going in front of me and it's going behind me. So I start to walk back into the water, where the breakwater is. As I start to get closer to the water is breaking, opening ahead of me. As the waves are coming in, it's breaking and going around me like there was a force field or something there, keeping it from touching my feet. So I could go deep enough into far enough away so I could read this thing. And there in capital letters, and these letters had to be, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 feet long, written in the sand, spreading out in front of me, were these words. And it said, your, there was a publisher's insert mark, but I didn't know that at the time that that's what it was called. Then above that is the word mother, so it says your mother. Then it says, has faith in you. And I looked at that and I said, oh, that's the answer to what I just prayed, because I just asked our Father. I needed to know there was someone here that had faith in me. But I didn't suspect my mother because I was an abused child growing up. I got beatings no child should get from my mother. Was very disturbed. My mother because I was an abused child growing up. I got beatings no child should get from my mother. Was very disturbed in those years when I was growing up before the divorce happened in our family, and she did a lot of damage to me through all of that, mentally and emotionally. But I tried to block most of it out. Is how I coped with it, and later on I started to get help to try to work all of that through. Plus the death encounter helped, because I got shown a lot in the death encounter to help me understand what had happened even to her and her family growing up. But anyway, so here's this message that says, your insert mark mother has faith in you. As I'm looking at that, amazed at what I'm seeing, I hear a sound to my left. I turn, and there's now the fog is shaped like this wall, about a few stories high, and maybe going half the length or a quarter of the length of a football field's distance, and it's really thick. It's about several feet thick, but perfectly shaped like a wall. And that astounded me. So I went up to it, and I put my hand in it, and it passed right into it, disturbed it, and as I pulled my hand out, it would all reassemble and hold its shape as the wall. I thought, isn't that fascinating? Wouldn't Hollywood love to have something like this? This is a great special effect, but it's not a special effect, it's real. So I thought, I wonder what's behind this thing. It seems like it's hiding something. So I turn around, because I'm exploring, I'm curious. And I look behind it, and there I see, sitting off where the water is breaking before it becomes the breakwater, where the waves are breaking, is this tear in time and space, big enough to put a semi-truck through. And it's a hole, perfectly shaped hole, with all the clouds that shaped around it from the fog. So I go behind the wall, and I kind of line myself up trying to look at this thing, and I'm standing on my tippy toes, because even with my scientific training at that time, I'm thinking, well, am I looking at an opening into a parallel universe? You know, it was the first thing that came into my mind. Or is this an opening into the spiritual realm coming into the physical? You know, and I remember the miracles of the Bible, so I'm trying to get some information. You know, I wasn't freaking out by the whole thing. Miracles have been happening to me all my life, but this was the biggest one that ever happened. So I'm looking at this thing, and I could notice that the ocean was suspended above our ocean in this tear, and pouring out of it was these stairs, big enough for a man to walk on, about 8 or 9 steps. And the water was pouring out, and it was retracting back in like a cycle. So it wouldn't pour into our ocean, but it was pouring down and up, and it was suspended over where the waves were breaking. And I thought, who would want to walk those steps and walk onto the waves, you know? I didn't understand it. I just was thinking, you know, but I left it alone. So as I'm watching this opening, wondering what it is, all of a sudden it starts to close. And the way it closed was, it was like looking at the slits of the iris of a camera spinning around. And it just was very quiet and very gentle about the whole thing. It just started to swirl and spin and get smaller and smaller, and finally it just closed up very peacefully. So I'm looking at this, and now the wall behind me has dissipated that was hiding this thing. I turn over to my right side, and there's the message, your mother has faith in you. There's where the opening was. I'm standing on the shoreline, still in this tunnel that the fog had become The steps behind me that I had formed in the sand had been washed away by the water, but where I was standing, the water was still breaking around me as it came in. It wouldn't touch my feet. And I was speechless. Not scared, just curious as to what this was all about. I knew I'd had the death encounter 4 weeks previous. Now I'm getting, what, a visit? I'm thinking? But why? And for what purpose is going on in my mind? Suddenly, it feels like someone jabs me with their elbow over on my right side, but there's no one standing there that I can visibly see. But I went, ugh, like this. I went, whoa, what was that? You know? And then I hear from my soul, going up to my mind, the words of an angel saying, well, thank him. He's indignant. He's saying, thank him. He just did a powerful miracle for you, is how I hear it. I'm going, oh. So I say in a loud voice, I said, thank you, Lord. I don't understand what you did, but thank you for doing it. Hopefully I'll understand down the road what you wanted me to know about this. So I left it at that. I walked away from the Oceanside, went back to my car, and as I got to the car, I looked back to where it all happened, and everything had returned back to the way it was. The tunnel had disappeared, meaning the fog being the tunnel, everything disappeared. And it was as it was just before I had walked onto the Oceanside. I got back in my car and I went back to the apartment. My mother was up by that point in time. In fact, when I got onto the Oceanside, I think it was around 6:30. So I probably had to have left the apartment around 6 or a little before then. Yeah, it was about 6:30 in the morning. So by the time I got back, she was awake. I walked in. Yeah, first thing that goes in your mind is doubt. I can't believe us as creatures. I mean, we're so stupid, quite frankly. There was no doubt about what had happened, but I thought maybe somebody's playing a prank on me. You know? So I walked back into the apartment. I look at my mother and I said, do you know where I went this morning? She says, no, baby, I never know where you're going when you leave here. I go, okay. So I briefly told her what had happened, because I thought she knew or somebody knew and they were playing a prank on me, as if that could be created by man. But anyway, that's the doubt that sets in, the flesh. So anyway, I told her briefly what had happened, and she didn't say anything. She just listened. She just looked at me and said, sweetheart, I always knew you walked under the hand of God. I told you that when you were a boy. Why wouldn't something like that happen to you? She did say that. Yeah, I do remember her saying that. Other than that, she didn't say anything else. I left it alone. I didn't talk about it with anyone for at least 10 years because I didn't know what to make of it. Now, I'm 54 years old. I know I don't have much time to be here on the earth because I know what my life's plan fully is after the second death encounter. So I'm taking the time to share this and put it on YouTube for the sake of the ones who think it will bless them and help them, to maybe answer some of your questions, to know that, you know, here's another near-death encounter. I don't even call them near-death encounters. You're dead. There's no near-death anything. You're dead when you had what I had in the first part of the experience. And also that miracles, real big ones, really do happen. But if you don't open yourself up to God, to let Him be Himself, He won't do the miracles for you. He will not invade your space. But if you will open yourself up and you'll receive the light, because He's nothing but light, all He can do is give. If you'll really open yourself up and receive, who knows what He'll do for you if you'll just do that. And that's really the message, I think, of sharing these. It's to let you know that when you really open yourself up to God, you can expect really great miracles to happen around you. The greatest miracle, of course, is His love for all of us, and the love that we should have for each other. My closing statement to this testimony, this two-part testimony of my first death encounter, would be to encourage all of you, please don't hate each other. He feels the pain when you do. You're all... testimony of my first death encounter would be to encourage all of you, please don't hate each other. He feels the pain when you do. You're all part of the pure white light of his being, even though you're in the flesh body that you're in. You're not only hurting the person next to you when you hurt them, but you're hurting him. And I hate using the word him because there's no gender in God. There's no male or female like you're used to thinking of it. He's just this pure white light formless being that created everything out of love, and he just wants to love all of us. He accepts every one of us unconditionally. It doesn't matter whether you're a politician, whether you're a prostitute, a murderer, whether you're a homosexual, whether you're a liar. I know the Bible says about that, but what you guys don't realize when you get to see it in death is once you're freed from your body, none of that applies anyway. All that's important is what Christ did on the cross to justify every one of us, so that we could be accepted unconditionally before him and our Father. And what we should be doing is accepting each other just the way we are. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote Bursting the Bubble 1, my album. I captured the most controversial life issues in that album with a basic message to everyone. I'm bursting the bubble, the barriers between all of you, saying you're all one planet. You are all part of the pure white light of God's substance and being. And I made each song in dance form because we all should dance together, no matter what our differences are, and realize that those differences that we have are meant to help each other when we open ourselves up to receiving what we each can give one to the other. So with that said, let's move along to my second death encounter that happened at age 44. It's something I think the Christian community at least can more equate to, because they're all caught up with going to heaven and getting their paradise or whatever. But I wanted this first one to be told because there's a lot more to God than the Christian community realizes. There's a lot more in the Bible than the Christian community is embracing. I've read from all the books, from the Jewish mystic books, the Zohar, the Kabbalah, the Talmud, to the Indian readings, from Upanishads of India, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, and I've been reading the Bible since I was in the 4th grade. And where I'm at, I find there is no equal so far who knows the things that I do, unless I can find somebody who's been dead, thoroughly dead, and been exposed to the things I got to see when I died. Then I don't feel so alone. It's like finding another light in a dark tunnel when I meet someone like that. Otherwise, those of you who have not died, who are still in your flesh-mindedness, really don't have a clue, and I understand that, to what the greater reality is. And for those of you who are seekers, who are trying to learn, I realize you need to hear testimonies like this, and that's why it's being offered. The reason behind why all of this happened, like I said before, that would have to be the subject of a book. If I live long enough, if the Lord doesn't take me before I'm done with what he wanted me to do here, maybe I'll write a book. The title I have in mind is called A Conquering Champion. I won't tell you why I picked that. It was related to a dream I had back when I was 18 years old. But it would be the title I would give to a book on the biography of my life, including the miracles that have happened along the way. I think all of you don't realize miracles are happening around you all the time, but you take them for granted. What I had are the grandiose miracles. The one that I had at Dockweiler Beach, and I've had other ones similar. And I suppose a lot of people hope for that. I would tell you, don't hope for that. If it's in God's good pleasure to use that form of communication to reach you, and you're receptive to it, and you're not going to put the miracle above him or an encounter with him, then he'll do the miracle. But the little miracles around you, each of you are a miracle to each other and don't realize that. And you should embrace the miracle of each other and the love for each other, and do as much good as you can to help one another as you possibly can, because we're here for a very short time before death comes. For some of us, it's age 5. Others, it's age 25 or 35. Some of us, it may be 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. But it's still a short time next to what eternity is. So you're listening to the Astro Boy 9 channel on YouTube. Please visit us. We'll be uploading all kinds of really cool, neat stuff in the time to come. Some of it will be controversial. Some of you will fight and argue and, cat scratch with each other. Please don't take it out on me. All I want to do is expose you to some really great stuff to give you some food for thought. And I don't expect any of you to know what I know at this time where I'm at in my life. But enjoy it. It's why I created it. And may God bless you, for those of you who are blessed by this, in the hearing of this and in the love that you share for one another while you're visiting good old planet Earth.